Did one of the major bulls just turn bearish during the last week? Did we saw, I would say it's one of the major bulls right now at the market, especially for Ethereum, turning bearish and expecting a big correction in the market. Turning bearish. I think we saw something about it, okay? And I think there was a misunderstanding about what was shared last week. I was on holidays and someone sent me a text, look, 𝗕𝗏𝗧𝗽 is bearish on Ethereum. And I was like, nah, impossible. There are two things that will never happen. Rand saying something good about XRP and 𝗕𝗏𝗧𝗽 being bearish on Ethereum. So something was odd, and I decided to research. And today we are going to deep dive on that. We are going to talk about also what's happening on the market, what happened last week, what we can expect this week. It's Christmas, so it will be a shorter one. And my name is Pedro 𝗙𝗹𝗹, and I'll be here on this time slot during Christmas holidays. So you can count on me basically every day this week, except 24 and 25, to look for some trades, give you some offers, and see what the market is doing today. So, and during the next days, of course. So let's go and see what's happening right now at the market. Like I said, 𝗕𝗏𝗧𝗽 is not bearish. And I think a lot of people misunderstood what happened. But first, let's see what we can expect this week. Okay, let's start with that. And I think it's important for us to understand that we are going to get some data this week. Okay, and this is really important. And we should be getting some data today. So today we should get the PCE from October. Everyone remember when we had the shutdown, right? We should be getting the PCE from October when the government of the US was during the shutdown. And I think this will be really important. And I'll share with you why. Because last week we had this. Okay, the core PCI, they were expecting 3.0, it was 2.6. Okay, so this was a major CPI reading, to be honest, and no one was expecting this. And like it's said here, this is starting to get to the 2% target that the Fed wants and that Powell wants. And maybe the data that we are going to see that's going to be released, it's just the data that will force Powell to cut rates, right? Maybe. I'm just saying maybe, okay? I'm not sure about anything of this. I'm just giving you my opinion. This was an awkward one, okay? We saw inflation coming really like 2.6 when they were expecting 3.0. I'm telling you, something was odd about this reading. Some are saying that it's affected by the shutdown. Might be, okay, might not have all the data. But this is a lower than expected reading for CPI, okay? So I really think that 2026 is going to be crazy, like someone is saying here, and 2026 really is going to be wild because I think they are going to force Powell to cut rates. This is just my opinion, okay? I might be wrong, but this is what I'm expecting. And one of the key factors will be the core PCE today, okay? If we have a core PCE below expectations or within expectations from October, maybe inflation is really coming down. Maybe inflation is really, how can I say this, going to the 2% target that Powell wants. And that will force Powell to cut rates and keep going and keep cutting rates, sorry. So let's see. I'll be here this week, like I told you, and let's see what's going to happen. Also, we are going to have the GDP tomorrow and a lot of data tomorrow. Then we are going to have Wednesday, just durable goods, it's nothing major. Christmas on Thursday, I won't be live streaming. Wednesday and Thursday I'll be out. And let's see, we're going to get a lot of data this week from the shutdown, okay? Be ready for the volatility and embrace the volatility, okay? Embrace the volatility because we might not get a center rally, okay? But we might get some volatility to trade. And that's good, okay? We don't need to be waiting for, I remember the last Christmas. So this one having volatility, I think it will be great for you to trade. Honestly, this is what I believe, and I think it will be awesome. Let me check how we are on likes, because I didn't give you a degen play. I remember that last show I was here before going on holidays because I didn't get 200 likes at least. So you know, if you want a degen play or if you want some alpha, 200 likes is the minimum. Then maybe you get something. maybe I'll share something with you, okay? Because there are still good opportunities on the market, and I'm researching daily for them, okay? And leave me a comment from where you are watching, because I always like to map the audience. But still, regarding the rate cuts, okay? This was said by Trump yesterday. Listen to this.
I want to ask about interest rates, because a lot of Americans agree with you that they're too high. You're going to pick a new Fed chair soon. Is it a litmus test that the new chair lower interest rates immediately?
Yes. Well, this guy too should too, but I think he's a combination of.
Let's listen again. This part.
You that they're too high. You're going to pick a new Fed chair soon. Is it a litmus test that the new chair lower interest rates immediately?
Yes.
So we know rate cuts are going to happen. We know the new chairman of the Fed is going to cut rates, because that's something that Trump is almost, as how can I say this? It's mandatory to get the job. Okay? If you want to be the new Fed of the chairman, you'll need to cut rates. This inflation data now, it seems to be supporting that we're going to get more rate cuts than what the previous dot plot told us. So I think, as you know my opinion, I'm a permeable, and I do believe we are going to get bullish at 2026. Okay, this is just my opinion. I can be wrong, of course, but I do believe in this. Okay, I do believe it, and I think, like I said before to you, I'm not on the top is in or bottom is in crew. I look at the structure. The structure is intact. Everything else is noise, and I leave those discussions to the other guys. Like, we are now seeing people calling 90 days correction bear market. So yeah, that's not for me, and I don't like to go for that area. And something that I think is really important for you to understand is this. Okay, so we are seeing some outflows on Bitcoin ETFs. Some might say it because the Clarity Act was delayed. Probably already know this. If you follow Banter, I'm sure you do. But the Clarity Act that was supposed to be approved this year was delayed to January 2026, and it needs to be approved on 2026. If not, it might never be approved. Okay, and the Clarity Act is really important. And if you don't know what is the Clarity Act, maybe I'll explain later, but it's one of the most bullish regulatory, how can I say this, frameworks that we need for crypto, okay? But look at this. Okay? You need to understand this. We had like $952 million of outflows last week, okay, on ETFs. But when you look at year-to-date flows, that's nothing, okay? This is nothing. Look, we had the year-to-date outflows are $696 million, okay? This is what you have. This is nothing. The outflows, this is just noise, okay? And you need to understand also that I think it's really important, and I wanted to show you this here. Again, guys, let me know where you are watching, because it's really important for me to know where you are watching. I really like to see. But look at this. This is another good point regarding the ETFs, okay? 𝗖𝗍𝗏, it's the only ETF that I think it's year-to-date is on a downturn. It's like the return is minus 10%, minus 959. But it's still on 6th place regarding flows and assets under management. Again, look at this. 𝗖𝗍𝗏, it's still on 6th place, being one of the few, if not the only one, that's negative in returns from year to date. But look at here. Look at this. It's still in 6th place. They are not selling. We might see some outflows. That's people trade ETFs like you and I trade shitcoins. But this is not nothing major. Okay? They are holding. They are holding. The assets under management, it's something that you need to check. And then that will reduce the noise. And you will see that. Okay? I think you're going to start to see that ETFs, I think it was 𝗏𝗏 that told this. First year is always bad. Second year and in the following years, it's when you see the volume going up and ETFs starting to perform better. So let's see what's going to happen. But I do believe that we are going to have a bullish 2026. And this brings me to this report here. Okay? And this was the message that I got last week. That Fundstrat, Tom Lee's fund, was saying that we are going to see 60 to 65K Bitcoin $1,800 to $2,000 Ethereum, and $50 to $75 Solana, okay? In H1 2026. Again, this is a really important data. H1 in 2026. This is what the report says here. Okay, this is Fundstrat, one of the researchers, and Agile Digital Asset Strategy, and it says this. Okay, there's nothing wrong about this. Okay, there's nothing wrong about this. It just say the base case a meaningful drawdown in 1H or H1. Okay, as you prefer to call it. Now we need to understand what is an H1. Okay. Because 𝗕𝗏𝗍 has been being bullish and he's been saying that probably Ethereum is going up in 2026, January, February 2026, same for Bitcoin, whatever. And this is something that I think we need to understand, okay? Q1 might be really bullish for Bitcoin and altcoins. That doesn't mean that Q2 will be bullish also, because that's when the market doesn't like uncertainty. Okay, and when we start to see that the Fed will change, the chairman of the Fed will change in May, that will be Q2, sorry. So maybe the market will not like that uncertainty. We have a new player on the Fed. We don't know what they are going to do, what he is going to do, what will be the decision, if the Fed will be divided, whatever, and maybe we'll see a drawdown. Okay, but even that, okay, this is something that it might happen. It's not a certain thing, but this research, 𝗙𝗵𝗹𝗃, felt the need to explain what he was doing. He felt the need to explain what he was doing, okay? It's not Ron, it's Ran. So, and you don't know if you don't know this, but I'm not Ran, okay? So, especially when I speak something good about XRP, almost on all my shows, you understand that I'm not Ran. But like I was saying, look at this. He had to explain that this is his base case because he advised people who has 20% exposure to crypto on a hedge fund, okay? It's not your portfolio, it's not my portfolio, it's an hedge fund, okay? And he says, and he explains the difference. In case of 𝗕𝗏𝗍, he's talking about investors that allocate 1 to 5% of their portfolio to Bitcoin and Ethereum. Okay, so we need to deconstruct this to understand what he was saying. He's being conservative, he's being careful because there's a lot of macro uncertainty. That's like this. So, how can I say this? I think we should understand what he was saying here, okay? If you're like me and you are like 99% on altcoins, I know that everyone doesn't agree with that, but I'm okay. Maybe I should look at this guy and say, okay, maybe I'm too much exposed to altcoins, whatever. But you need to understand where he comes from and who he's advising, okay, to understand why he said this. So he has people with billions of dollars that are on this fund, and he's saying, look, you have 20% on crypto, maybe you should reduce their exposure because I'm expecting a big drawdown. If that drawdown doesn't happen, he was just careful, okay? He even says here, it's just his analysis, nothing else. It's not a certain thing that is going to happen, okay? But then this is one thing you need to understand. 1H or H1, it's a half. A half is composed by Q1 or Q2 or Q3 and Q4. So we can have a bullish Q1 and a bearish Q2. We can have a bearish Q1 and a bullish Q2. But that will be on this guy analysis of a H1 bearish case. Okay? Did I make myself was I clear explaining this? What is the difference? Because a lot of people, I received the message, 𝗕𝗏𝗍 is bearish. 𝗕𝗏𝗍 is the same guy. Look, I think you need to understand that 𝗕𝗏𝗍 is the Michael Saylor of Ethereum. And he just bought more today. More, I don't know, $40 million in total. Look at this. Over the past week, 𝗕𝗏𝗍 or Bitmine had a 99,000 Ethereum, not dollars, Ethereum over the past week. Okay, now they own 3.37% of the total supply, and they have around cash in crypto $13.2 billion. Do you think 𝗕𝗏𝗍 doesn't know what he's doing? Honestly, tell me on the chat. Do you think 𝗕𝗏𝗍 doesn't know what he's doing? It's just burning money? Or do you think he's expecting a bullish a Q1, let's say this, not Q2. Let's go for Q1. This is expecting a bullish Q1. And again, you need to understand something. This is very different from Sailor, okay? Because this Ethereum is staked and they have a yield and they can pay their investors with that yield. They pay in Ethereum. If Ethereum is at 5K, they receive more in dollar value. If it's at 2K, they receive less in dollar value, but they receive always the same Ethereum, okay? And this is different for Michael Saylor because their Bitcoin doesn't generate any yield. This is something that I think you need to understand also, okay? They are buying, they are staking it, and they are generating a yield. And like Tom Lee said, they might not need to sell their Ethereum ever because they are generating a yield and they can pay their investors. And this is really important, okay? This is a very, very, very important point to understand Tom Lee's strategy. And like I said, it doesn't matter the price of Ethereum. They will receive always the same quantity of Ethereum. And yeah, I think things are looking good, to be honest, but let's see. But like I said, understand that H1 or 1H, it's a half is 2 quarters, and we can have a bullish recovery, let's say like this, on Q1 and a downside on Q2, okay? Something that we need to understand, this was just a report, okay? Like sometimes, as I told you here on my first show or second show, I'm shorting Ethereum, I'm shorting Bitcoin because this is trading. But I'm bullish on the long term. It's kind of the same, to be honest. It's kind of the same. So now let's go for some OPM, some bullishness. And here, if you can see better like this. This is the Russell 2000. I think I brought you this already here, okay? And I've been following this really closely because usually this means there's a rotation from big caps on stock to small caps, okay? And this is what we are seeing right now, is that Russell 2000 is breaking out. I've been following this for weeks. I've been sharing this for weeks. And at least on my Portuguese, on the Banter Portuguese channel, I've been following this almost daily. And then look, we might start to see rotation. We might start to see something, to see a rotation from big caps to small caps, stocks-wise. If that happens, that will happen also with crypto, whatever. And when stocks stop to run, when gold, that just did a new all-time high today, and also silver, stop to run, then we might start to see crypto catching up, because investors will look for more risk because they are having diminished returns on their assets they are holding right now, okay? So just for you to be aware that this is happening, okay? And yes, do still believe in I still do believe in alt season, and might be wrong, of course, but this is what I believe, and this is what I'm going to keep sharing with you, because if I do believe alt season is coming, I'm positioned for that. And even let me tell you this, okay? I bought silver in 2022 around $15, $20, something like that, and that at that time, no one was looking at silver. Now everyone is sharing silver exploding, okay? I bought altcoins on the same period. If you want, this is my opinion, okay? If you want to, let's say, make money on this market, you need, of course, to do your research. But you know when it's not funny to buy, it's not a new thing. It's boring to buy. It was boring to buy silver. It was boring to buy altcoins. But they provided the biggest returns. Silver even outperformed Bitcoin. So you need to understand this, okay? It's not when everyone is talking about, an altcoin that you like or whatever. It's when no one is looking at. That's when you make money. That's why I told you that I think this is a major accumulation and a major, major opportunity that the market is giving for those that missed the market, missed the previous lows. But this is just me, okay? My opinion might be wrong, not financial advice. I'm just sharing with you what I do. And if it works for me, in theory, it should work for you too, okay? It should work for you too. But this, we will see in the future. Now, let's look at this chart. You know I've been following this chart. These green arrows point for the previous bottoms of the corrections that we had. And so far, we almost went there, okay? We almost went there. So I will go to the comments at the end. So we almost went there, but we hold up. Now it's facing a lot of resistance. For you to be aware, this is the dominance of USDT plus USDC, something I've been following really closely, and we want this to reject. Okay, if we are going to get a Christmas or a Santa rally, let's say like this needs to reject right here. Okay, this needs to reject right here. I'm following it closely, and I can even give you a perspective so you can understand where I'm coming from. I think it's easier. No, it's not this one. Sorry. Probably it's this one. Okay. These green arrows connect with the other ones. Okay. So this was the previous 30 plus corrections that we had. Bear market 1, bear market 2, bear market 3. They are following quite the same structure, especially this one, the previous one. So if you connect this with these green arrows with this one, this mark the bottoms, okay, of the previous corrections. This mark the bottoms of the previous corrections, okay? So this is what I'm seeing right now. And yeah, so far the bottom is in, and I think we are going to see the bottom is in more this week and at least at the end of the year. Okay, I don't know if we are going to go above 100K this year. I don't like to do that type of like prediction, whatever. I trade what I see, and if I don't see, I don't trade. But so far, I have my invalidation points, I have my resistance and support levels, and that's what I'm tracking. Okay, so regarding Bitcoin, and now going to the charts because I know you like charts. And let me just check one thing. So, how many likes do we have? Can someone tell me on the chat? You need to refresh. And someone is watching from Arkansas. Awesome. Awesome. So, let's look at Bitcoin right now, okay? Let me just... Okay. So, Bitcoin, I did a live stream in the Portuguese Banter channel this morning. I was expecting something like this, okay? And I still am, to be honest. Something like this. So... this is what I was waiting for, but it decided to go to 90K, but you need to pay attention that we already rejected here. I'll say once, twice, and this is the third time, okay? This is the third time we are rejecting here. So the US session is not being very friendly for the market, but if I go here, I'm telling you, I will not long this, okay? I will not long this. I'm not bearish, okay? I don't like to lose money. I don't like to long resistance. It almost came to like I said, we should see a pullback or a retracement to previous resistance and support. It almost went there. Here I would have long, okay? Right now I'll prefer to wait and to see if we have a flip and do like this and long around the 90K, expecting a continuation for 92. But for me to be sure that everything and the worst is over, okay? The worst is over, I need to see this. And I'm going to show right now. I need to see a move like this. If we see something like this and we reclaim 92, 300, this resistance here as a support, then I'll think the worst is over. And then we can start to think for higher levels, okay? Till then, it's just ranging. Okay, we have been ranging here from 90 to 84. This was almost a double bottom here, okay? Almost a double bottom, or you can say it was a double bottom. We did a double bottom, and now we are recovering. So this is what I'll do, okay? It's up to you, but like I said, I don't like to lose money, and I don't want to lose money. So, yeah, I would wait. This mean that I sold spot? No, I have my spot holdings. I even bought some altcoins today, and been even last week when we had these corrections here. This was a nasty one. This was a really nasty one. I think it was related to the Clarity Act, and I took advantage of this dip because my phone started to ring. I felt it was Christmas already because of it sounded like a Christmas music, and yeah, this is what I'll do. I don't long resistance, so doesn't mean I'm not bearish. I'm not bearish at all. I might be one of the biggest bull here, but yeah, I don't like to long resistance. Doesn't make any sense for me, okay? Same for Ethereum. I think Ethereum, I told you this last show, I think Ethereum would go to 3,500. It went to 3,450 more or less. It was not 3,500, but right now Ethereum is going up. It reclaimed the $3,000. I need to see this test as support. Okay, and this here I would long. If Ethereum did something like this, I would long here, and like I said, I would just wait for it to come lower. Okay, I just wait for it to come lower, and then I would long this. But this is just me. Okay, and yeah, I would really like to see Ethereum coming lower here because I was on holidays. I don't have many trades open. I only have an XRP long and another token long that I'm not going to mention here, unless I have 200 likes, and maybe I'll bring it tomorrow. But like I was saying, if we come lower and we test the $3,050, I would long that. Okay. Now I would wait. We are at resistance, as you can see here. Let me just pull this here, and you will see. And longing resistance is not for us. Okay. No one is going to long resistance here, so I would wait for something like that. For something like that, and that's what I will do. Okay. So let me check more. Let's check XRP. Okay. This is when things start to get interesting with altcoins. Right. This was that first the week of Bitcoin. Okay. During the West session, of course. And I want to believe this was just a deviation. Okay. This is for XRP. Okay. If this was a deviation only, and we can recover the $2. I think the worst is over for XRP. Okay, I think the worst is over for XRP, but this is a big if. Okay, the area that you need to pay attention for XRP is like it's here, $198, $2. If you pay attention to this here and you start to see it's rejecting, you can short XRP here. Okay, again, if you see XRP touching $1.98, $2 and rejecting hard, then you can look to short XRP. Okay, even if you want to hedge your spot bags, I probably will do it. I have an XRP long. I don't mind opening a short as an edge. That's trading. That's what you should do. Okay, at least that's what I believe that you should do. Also, if you are trading, take advantage of this. Okay, we have a campaign with Bitfinex. They are giving you even a VIP-free automatic upgrade if you just deposit $2,000. Okay, you get the bonus, and you even get the VIP-free upgrade, and better. If you trade $5,000 with a 10K deposit, you get a $1,000 USDT bonus, 20K, $10 million volume, 2K. Again, if you don't take advantage of this, especially on times like this, just use the bonus if you're afraid to get a stop. Okay, you just lose the bonus, you don't lose your money. And also, Bitfinex is my main exchange. Anyone that follows me knows that. So take advantage of this. The link is on the description, and yeah, go for it. Honestly, Bitfinex is, and after you register on Bitfinex, and if you stay there, you start to get those bonus dropping in your Bitfinex account, and I believe you like it and you'll enjoy it a lot. So XRP, like I said, we need to see if it's going to $192 reject. If it does something like this, reject here, and pull something like this. This is a different scenario. I'm not expecting this. I'm expecting to come here, and if it doesn't break, I will short XRP. Okay, this is what I will do. But I'm not bearish on XRP. By the contrary, I'm really bullish on XRP. But like bull, like the biggest bull you ever known about XRP. So let's check Solana. I still have time. This is exactly another example of what I was saying. Let me just pull this here. Maybe this was just a deviation here. Okay, the same as XRP. And maybe you can see Solana grinding higher. So right now is at resistance. We are not going to long any resistance, as you know. So I think we can go higher and we can do something like this. Okay, I'm not long on Solana, like I told you. Right now I'm only long on XRP and another one. But if we break this resistance here, I think you can start to look higher, and then 140 around these levels here. Let me just grab this around these levels here. Okay, if we can break this resistance here. This is what I will be looking for, Sol. Okay, like I said, in like XRP, I want to believe this was just a deviation because Solana has been range trading perfectly. Okay, so if we do this, probably I'm going to long here, and if you come lower, I will look for here, maybe, and try something around these levels here. Okay, so this is what I'm seeing for Solana. Also, it's Monday. We are starting to see low volume. So I'm just doing some quick scalps. I'm not opening swings right now. But yeah, I think this might be a good opportunity if we flip this resistance as support. Okay. So moving forward, let's talk about, you know what, which one. Okay. Curve. Look at this move from curve. Again, the week on Thursday. I want to believe it was a deviation and that we are going higher. Right now, I will be careful, okay? We had a bounce. It's not a weak one. It's a good bounce. But we need to wait for confirmations, okay? So if we cannot recover 40 cents, I think we might come lower again, test 45 cents around this area here. Let me just mark it. Around these levels here, and then go higher, okay? But I'm still, like I told you, I'm still accumulating curve. And I do believe curve is going to surprise a lot of people. So this is what I'm seeing, something like this. I would long here, or if you can do something like this. But the same way as XRP, if I start to see some rejections here, I can short curve as an edge to my spot bay, okay? If you're trading and you don't have an edge, you need to learn what is an edge. Okay, if you are trading and you don't have an edge, you should learn what an edge is. Okay, because there's no need to be losing money on the market like this. Okay, you can keep your entire portfolio, spot portfolio, but edging with a short. Okay, I don't have the hit here, but I shared in my Portuguese community last week that someone bought $50 million of Ethereum, and they opened a $50 million short on Ethereum. If it goes down, they have a perfect edge. So you need to learn how to hedge, to be honest, because you'll understand that you'll sleep well, you'll be okay if the market goes lower, because you're not be losing money, you'll be zero. You're not making money, not even losing money. Okay, so it's what it is. Let's look at Link. There's something going on with Link. Okay, I really like Link. I hold Link. I think Link is going to surprise a lot of people, but it's one of the few that almost gave all the gains from November 2024. November 2024. That's what I believe. I think there's something going on with Link, because if you check XRP, if you check XLM, if you check Curve, if you check even HBAR, they didn't give up all the gains like Link is giving up. Okay, so yeah, but so far it reacted where it needed to react. If you go here, you can see this has been Link reaction zone. Doesn't mean it will not come lower. I will be careful with Link here, okay? I will be careful here. I think it's still in a downtrend. And yeah, so I don't know. If you want to take a long here, it's really dangerous to long this. But if you wanted to pull a long here, maybe to DR and R is not here, to be honest. You're going to be targeting, I don't know, $14. I'm not going to take this trade, just to show you why it sometimes not worth it. If you want to do this, look at this. The RR is horrible. Horrible. Unless you believe it's going to break the resistance, and pull something like this. Yeah, I would not be doing anything right now, okay? I will not be doing anything right now. So, yeah, this is just what I'm seeing. Let me check the comments and see. Okay, let's see if this will work. And it's working. Awesome. I can see the comments now. So, let's see what we have here. Yeah, someone shilling. No, it's not run. It's run. Not run. Run. So, what is this guy X handle? It's Pedro Silva. It's 𝗕𝗏𝗃𝗍𝗏. It's here. You see? I'm going to show you. 𝗕𝗏𝗃𝗍𝗏. You should follow me on X. Not because of what I post, but because I do a lot of shit posting. But this is... First, you need to understand this. You didn't do this, and the market started to drop immediately after I tweeted this. And we need Brand to say something positive about XRP. Okay? If not, we are going for the worst bear market ever. But this is my handle. This is my profile here. It's 𝗕𝗏𝗃𝗍𝗏. It's not easier than this. Okay? It's my name. 𝗕𝗏𝗃𝗍𝗏. So, yeah. Just follow me on X. And sometimes I share cool things. Another 99% I just shit post. But yeah, sometimes I also have some cool giveaways. So it's up to you. But you should follow me there. Now let's check more comments. And thanks for the show. I appreciate you guys being here. It's almost Christmas, so. And Solana already saw. And learn English probably is not for me. Hey Peter, it's not Peter, it's Pedro. It's a good opportunity to buy 𝗕𝗏𝗃𝗏. I know there's something going on with 𝗕𝗏𝗃𝗏. They had a massive candle. Someone dumped 𝗕𝗏𝗃. I shared this. Look at 𝗕𝗏𝗃. 𝗕𝗏𝗃 is, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it will react here, but I won't touch 𝗕𝗏𝗃. I think there's something going on with. You're not seeing. I think there's something going on with 𝗕𝗏𝗃. Right? There's something going on with 𝗕𝗏𝗃 regarding the voting, and I think it's too messy, to be honest. It's up to you. If you believe in the project and you think it's just FUD or something that's happening, go for it. I won't touch it, to be honest. Right now, I won't touch it till things get clear, okay? But if you believe in the project, if you did your research, and if you think that, how can I say this? If you think that it's good for the long term, yeah, go for it. But right now, with everything that's going on, I need to understand what's going on before I can have a solid opinion on what's going on, okay? So let's check more comments here. I'm long on XMR. Keep or get out. Let's see. Someone is saying that the comment is not showing up and the comment is here. Yeah. So let me see here. Whoa. I haven't seen. I have a good XMR spot back, and I didn't know it was at these levels. If you are, just put a stop loss at break-even. I don't know what your entry is, but you crash the resistance that has been. I don't know how long it's been rejecting here. Since May 2025. Yeah, it had to break. It was 1, fake out, 2, 3, and then it flipped. Yeah, I'll keep it. If you're, I don't know your entry, but put the stop loss and break even. And I would long this. Not now, but I would wait for a proper retracement. I would long this. I would long this. Guys, if you're telling me that your comments are not visible, just write the comments again, because I'm seeing your comments and everyone is showing your comments. It might be some YouTube bug. Just write it again, please, so I can see the comments. If this one is showing up, the other ones should be showing up too, okay? Just write the comments again and I'll read it. So yeah, I would long this if it can. When it tests this, I will do something like this, okay? I would start to build a position here, stop loss below this low, and probably another one here, and same stop loss, and yeah, targeting the price discovery, okay? So yeah, I will do this, something like this, and just let it ride, okay? I will do this for sure. Damn, I didn't even know that my XRMR bag was at an all-time high. This is just for you to have an idea how I'm not looking at my altcoin portfolio right now, okay? Because I know it's not the time to look at it yet. So Yeah, I would don't take in consideration the IRR on this trade, the risk return on this trade, because this is going to price discovery. So yeah, if it gets here, okay, I might get front runner, but I prefer to wait for a better entry than get a stop loss. But I will not close my long. I don't know what's your entry, but I think if you're long on Monero, yeah, it might pull back as always, but yeah, I would not touch it. So Bitcoin is going higher. Do you think we are going to crash 900, 300, the resistance? Guys, I'm waiting for your comments so I can reply to you. Okay. Let me see how many likes we have here. I don't understand why you're saying your comments are not visible. Let me try to see it here. Everything should be visible. First, I think it's working, right? Yeah, I don't know. I see a comment here that said that this is a South American Banter guy. I'm not South American, I'm Portuguese, okay? And I've never been to South America, but I want to go. So I think that's the only thing here. I'm not seeing any more comments here that was not shown up, that haven't been shown. So, yeah. Let me see. Yeah, I think all comments should be appearing here. Guys, another thing. I don't know if you know anything about prop trading. I think you should learn prop trading, but I want to show you this, okay? BitFunded is doing this awesome Christmas campaign, okay? Prop trading, basically they are going to give you an account, and if you have a big drawdown, you lose that account. But if you are in profits, you'll keep 90% of the profits, they keep 10%, okay? And you can buy the challenges, so you can always keep going up and your account can grind higher, sorry. Look at this. You have the link in the description, and I'm explaining why. This is where you learn discipline, okay? This is where you're going to learn to be a disciplined trader, because if you don't have discipline on a prop trading on BitFunded, you lose everything. And I have my BitFunded account. I'm trading on BitFunded, and this is where I never go for a swing. It scalps over trading, okay? And if you want to learn how to be a disciplined person, a disciplined trader, try a prop firm, and you'll learn to take profits, and you'll learn to keep your profits, and you get addicted to taking profits, okay? So go here, take advantage of these challenges. They are doing a massive promotion. We might give away some challenges, I don't know. Let me know if you want to on the chat, but try this. Honestly, this is where you'll learn to be a disciplined trader. And sometimes we have to pay the lesson and just go for, even I take a lot of risks when I'm trading. On BitFunded, I'm the most disciplined person. And that's where we make money. It's when we are disciplined. So Bitonix, you can degen. On BitFunded, you are going to be the trader that you should be, okay? That you should be. Let's say like this. So, okay. I think everything is okay. I have people watching from Portugal. Regarding the comments, I think they are all showing up. I don't know why you're saying it's not, but sometimes YouTube has this issue. So, thank you for being here. I will see you tomorrow. Like I said, I'll be here almost every day this week except 24 and 25. And you can count on me. Bring your altcoins if you want to see some analysis. I don't mind doing some live analysis. It's just tell me, look, can you check this? And I'll do my best to check it. It's like this. So just tell me, and I'll see you all tomorrow at the same time. Thank you all.